I'm Emily Johnson, and I'm a history teacher. And oh, great start. Excuse me. And today I would like to talk about what to call Native American, Indian, Indigenous people. I'm Cherokee. Both my parents are part Cherokee, have a tribal ID card and a certificate of degree of Indian blood card. So the federal government recognizes me as Cherokee. The question, how much Indian are you, is kind of not a super polite question, but since I'm so light-skinned, people tend to ask that a lot. The question of like what percent you are, or blood quantum is what the technical term is, that is not a Cherokee concept at all. That is a US government concept. And Cherokee traditionally trace descent through the mother, not the father, because you always know for sure who your mother is, and you were whatever your mother was. But also the Cherokee, if you came and lived among the Cherokee and you lived in a Cherokee way, then you were considered a member of the tribe. And that was very confusing to some white people. So partially because I'm Cherokee, partially because I'm a historian, I would like to give you my personal opinion of what I like to be called and some of the issues with different terms for Native Americans. I cannot speak for all Native Americans, of course. No one person can. And I would encourage you, if you don't know what to call somebody, whether it's their ethnicity or their pronouns, or even how to pronounce their name, you should ask that person. This is a very simple concept. Ask people what they want to be called and call them what they ask you to call them. It's not that hard. If you make a mistake, just say, oops, sorry, correct yourself and move on. Don't make it a big thing all about you. Just say, oops, sorry, I mean he, and go on. My preference is actually for Indian. That is what my family has always used. We never use Native American when we're talking amongst ourselves. We always say Indian. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's just that the older people in my family got used to that term. But for me, that is the preferred term. And I know some people don't like it because Columbus is the first person who started calling the indigenous people of the Americas Indians because he thought he was in India, or possibly because he wanted to convince other people that he had found India. And this set up years and years of confusion. The East Indies and the West Indies became terms for the East Indies is India and the islands around it, and the West Indies is the term for the Caribbean, because that's not confusing at all, right? And also, this just added to confusion because Columbus starts this long tradition of Europeans not understanding the concept that there are different groups of Indians and that the different tribes are completely different and they have different languages and government and culture and religions. There is really nothing you can say that applies to all Native Americans. There is nothing you can say that is true of all Native Americans. So when you see somebody say this is Native American religion, or Native Americans don't believe in this or that, that sentence is automatically already wrong. It would be like saying all women think this or all men think that. It's not accurate. We don't all have the same religion, we don't all have the same culture, and we certainly don't all have the same politics. So Columbus starts the thing with Indians, and the confusion continues today. Yes, you can laugh at me, I can laugh at myself, but when I grew up in Oklahoma and then in Kansas. I moved to Indiana for graduate school, And before classes had even started, I saw a sign. I was so excited. Indian student mass meeting. I was so excited. I was going to meet other Indians. And, you know, I went to the meeting, and luckily before I even made it in the door, I heard music playing, and I realized, oh, this is for the other kind of Indian students from India. Not my kind of Indian. John, you Columbus. But and I later learned there were not enough Native American students at this school to have a mass anything. When I was in graduate school, including graduate students and undergraduates, out of thousands of students, there were only 16 Native American students. Yeah. So even I was confused, but I still use the term Indian. I sort of have issues with all the possible terms. Some people say indigenous, others object to that term because you say plants and animals are indigenous. The most common use of indigenous is in the phrase indigenous flora and fauna, which means the plants and animals that are native to a region. So since there's still so much in our culture and in our history that has equated Native Americans with animals and being savages and being inhuman, it is especially painful to hear language that equates Native Americans with plant and animal life. So that's one objection to the term indigenous. Other people are fine with it. I can only speak for me. Also, some people say natives and Native Americans. That's a very common term. It is not my preferred term. And this is probably, honestly, this is probably just me because I'm a historian. The first thing I think of when I personally hear Native American is not American Indians. What I think of is an old political party from relatively early in US history. They were called the Native American Party, and they had nothing to do with Indians. They were all about anti-immigrant racism. And you might remember from your history classes, the Know Nothing Party. They were associated with that group, and they perpetrated violence against immigrants. So I don't like the term Native American. It is not my preferred term. I'm not offended if somebody uses it, but it's not the term I'm going to choose to use unless I'm trying to clarify to another person what I mean. That's what I think of. I don't know that anybody else thinks of that because that's just a weird historian's viewpoint. Other terms that are somewhat problematic are First Nations. A lot of people have taken to using that. It sounds cool. It acknowledges the fact that Indians were here first before Europeans showed up. It also acknowledges the fact that there's more than one nation. And that's good since it seems to be a source of confusion for some people that all Indians are not the same. You would think this goes without saying, all Indians are not the same. That would be like expecting all Europeans to be the same. That, you know, Italians and Germans are different and have different culture and government and religious beliefs. Why would you expect Indians to be any different? I don't know. But that term primarily, most accurately, First Nations applies to the people from Canada. That's not really super accurate when you apply it to people in the United States or further south. That is the problem I have with it. First Peoples is also used. It's pretty much a term that originally referred to people in Canada. I don't love First Peoples because although it acknowledges that these people were here first and then Europeans showed up, to me, First People sounds a little bit like you're saying one group of people is better than another. Again, this is just my feeling. If somebody tells you they prefer First Nations, First People, Native American, whatever, call them what they want to be called. But you know what? 99% of the Native Americans that I know, they want to be referred to by their tribe because we're not all the same. So I would prefer, most of all, before American Indian, before Indian, I would most like to be referred to as Cherokee. And I know most people don't look at me and say, oh, she looks Cherokee. And I guess, I don't feel that I need to apologize that I have light skin. A lot of Cherokee have light skin. A lot of Cherokee have light hair. I know you can't see my hair. It's sort of light brown. Before contact with Europeans, even full blood, as they used to be called, full blood Cherokee are light skinned. The Delaware Nation, people tend to be even lighter skinned. When Europeans first had contact with the Delaware, they thought they'd found lost Europeans because their skin was so light, and sometimes their eyes are light. Not all Indians, not all Indians are the same. Not all Indians look alike. There's a very strong stereotype about what Native Americans should look like. A lot of it comes from Hollywood, and a lot of it comes from old Westerns where they didn't even use Indians to play Indian roles. They used Asians, especially Chinese immigrants. They used, well, sometimes for the low budget ones, they were made in Italy, and they used Italians to play Native Americans. Spaghetti Westerns, that's why they're called that, because they were made in Italy. And they would also, you might have heard of blackface, taking makeup and painting a white person's face to make them look like they have African ancestry. This is really racist. This is really bad. Don't do it. But it used to be done very often in old movies and other entertainment for comic effect. Well, red face is a thing, taking a white actor and putting really dark makeup on them to make them look Indian. Yeah, that's racist. That's bad. Don't do that either. You'd think this should go without saying in 2021, but I guess it doesn't because people keep doing it. So not all Indians look alike. Not all Indians have dark skin. Not all Indians are tall and skinny and have long hair and high cheekbones. We all look different. We're all different. That's okay. So the real point of this is not just to tell you why I don't like the term Native American, why I prefer to be called Cherokee, or if you don't know what tribe somebody is, to be called American Indian. The real point is to tell you, ask people what they want to be called and listen to their answer. You don't get to decide what to call somebody else. They get to decide what they want to be called. Again, you'd think this would go without saying, but apparently not. Now, most Indians, I feel like a lot of Indians can look at each other and say, oh, that person is Indian. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it is. But I've definitely had other Indians come up to me and say, what tribe are you? And not just at conferences where 90% of the people there were Indian. But you can't always tell what race somebody is by looking. Race is a cultural construct. It is not a biological reality. That is definitely a topic for another little video. But you don't get to decide what race somebody is. They get to decide what race or races they identify as. You don't get to police them. The US government thinks it gets to decide who is Indian. I disagree. For many tribes, the US government lets the tribe decide who its members are. So the definition of who's Indian and who's not varies by the tribe. For the Cherokee Nation, if you can trace direct descent using paper documentation from somebody who was on a list, a census list called the rolls, if you can trace direct descent from somebody on that list, you're Cherokee. It's really simple. Other tribes, you have to be a certain percent, or you have to show it through the mother or the father, or different things like that. It's not a genetic test. I'm not aware of any tribe that uses some sort of DNA test to show whether you're a member of their tribe or not. But you don't get to police what race other people are. I have had quite a few people tell me I'm not a real Indian. because I'm not dark enough, but I've also had white people who tell me, no, you're not white, you're Indian, you'll never be white. That's not okay. You don't get to tell other people what race they are. They get to decide for themselves, and they don't have to fit into your preconceived notions. Just like you don't get to tell people what gender they are, they get to decide for themselves, and they don't have to fit into your neat, tidy categories. Let's see, is there anybody left that I have not offended with this video? Oh, on a side note, I found this lovely background. This is a Cherokee basket. This image is zoomed way in. This basket is from 1720. I'm amazed that it is so well preserved. The basket is in beautiful shape, and Cherokee basketry is famous. And that's another stereotype about Native Americans, is that we're supposed to be crafty and good with our hands. Yeah, that would be a racist stereotype, just like saying, I don't know, all Asians are good at math or something like that. No, you don't stereotype people by their race. Not cool, not okay. So there's my rant about why I prefer to be called Indian or American Indian, but also the real point is ask people what they want to be called. Don't make assumptions, listen to their answer. Thank you for listening to my extremely opinionated video.